Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Camille as the host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. We have a phenomenal conversation tonight, but before we do that, I want to let you know that the Speaker Podcast Premium is now available. That's right, exclusive interviews and conversations are available on TSP Premium for just $3 a month. So go to YouTube right now and subscribe to get all the latest. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick and subscribe at YouTube at Camille Essick Official. Without further ado, tonight's guest is the IGive. Welcome to the show.
Peace. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, fun fact, those that if you've listened to, I think seasons 1 through I think 5, and you were listening to the intro, this is the voice of the Speaker Podcast for those seasons. So, yeah. So those
Yeah.
that are not familiar with who you are, Greg, please let the listeners and viewers know who you are and a little bit about what you do.
All right. Well, I'm a hip hop MC and artist based out of Jacksonville, Florida. I've been performing and releasing music for at least the last 15 to 20 years. I have 3 albums out, available in the ethers anywhere you stream. I'm also a lyricism teacher at an after school program for the arts here locally for uh, teenagers and middle schoolers ages 12 through 18. And I've also hosted events, um, acted in a few plays and movies and things of that nature, but predominantly I'm an MC, do hip hop lyricism, off the dome freestyles, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. And can you kind of let us know a little bit as far as your inspiration, as far as getting into music and being a lyricist?
Yeah, actually, it's a story I've repeated a lot recently because the MC that inspired me to rap actually came to Jacksonville last month, which was Nas. He released the song "If I Rule the World" featuring Ms. Lauren Hill, and that was the first record that really reached me. The way I grew up in a church gospel background, and I don't know, something about the messaging of the song and the soulfulness of the chorus and just the empowerment that I felt listening to it. It made me feel like I had a voice, and I wanted to express myself. So I started writing my rhymes out. I was about 10 years old when that came out. So that's what got me kicked off.
That's really good. So we're gonna hop into a little icebreaker here. October, we've seen hip hop celebrate its 50th anniversary, and I know that has played a role in all of our lives. If you're, part of the culture, I don't know where you've been, but it's been threaded throughout our culture. So, who are your top 5 artists or lyricists? I know there's a huge debate, but I'm just curious to know, like, who are your top 5?
Top five. I think anybody that's really into this might hate this question because it's always hard to choose. Um, let's see here. No specific order. I would definitely say Nas, of course. Um, Black Thought would be in my personal top five out of the roots. Rakim, the God MC. Um, and I don't know. These are just going to be like personal faves, and not who I think everybody should think is the best. These are just my personal faves. I would probably cap it off with Most Def and Method Man. Those would be like my top 5 favorite MCs like over the course of my life.
All right, great. So we have seen like so many changes as far as music technology. What do you think about where music is like right now as far as the culture? Because we hear things like, "Oh, it's not like it was," in the '90s and early 2000s, and we look at trends now. I'm not really on some of these other artists because just from seeing them, I'm like, what? So I know this generation is a little different, but I'm more of like an old school, like '80s, '90s, early 2000s type of girl. So, what are your thoughts as far as where we are right now, as far as culturally in music?
Um, that's a good question. Like I kind of do a distinction between like what we see on TV or on social media and then what's, reaching the people. So like on the industry wise, it's just the next evolution. Our parents thought we were crazy and they hated our music. These kids, we think they crazy and we don't like their music. I don't know. It's just evolving. It's becoming definitely more and more commercialized, branded, and packaging. But there's some highlights. First of all, you have a rise in women in music, getting a lot more shine these days.
That's
And I
true.
think that's really important, even in some of the ones that you don't necessarily love when it comes to like the older crowd and things like that. But
Mhm.
we could say the same thing about lady MCs in our day. They've always had those criticisms. So I think it's a good thing that women are getting a larger space and voice in a more prominent spotlight. So I think that is amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing that spotlight expand. Other than that, like commercial industry is commercial industry. They're going to push what they push. The raunchiest, most unsavory elements of the culture and art are always going to be exploited until the people that run it change, and that's just kind of how it always has been and always will
Yeah.
be.
I wanted to
But
ask you more about that as far as ladies having the space because if we meaning us as women are giving those platforms, should that not evoke some greater sense of responsibility as far as the presentation?
I mean, did it for the men in the '90s? Um, we were
Because
vulgar
that time
and
was male
violent.
dominated, right? In
Yeah,
comparison. So
but like when guys got on in the '90s and hip hop became more popular, it also became more violent, more vulgar. A lot of the things that women are presenting today are the same things that we fellas exploited in the '90s, as far as like sexuality and things of that nature. And also to keep in mind, it's a corporate machine. So
I was gonna say that is it more of the artist or do you think that's more of the label pushing that narrative?
I mean, obviously, it's going to be a little bit of both, but it's definitely the label pushing it, because when you look outside of what's pushed and you like start exploring your streaming services, you realize there's a large plethora of diverse artists who have lots of things to say that are much more textured and nuanced and thoughtful. And even those who are kind of like in the mainstream, but not quite like Nicki Minaj or Cardi B, you still got your Rhapsodies and your Tierra Wax, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So uh, they're there. You just have to look for them now. You can't let the machine feed you.
Yeah, I was gonna say even with those what I call more conscious artists, because they're not, I guess, giving those spaces on mainstream air quote, they are finding their path, but it's behind the scenes like Rhapsody or we look at Queen Latifah that shifted more so out of music and now she's, with Flavor Unit more on the production end as far as acting, movies, that space. Or like my Sora MC Light, she did what she did, but now she's finding her space doing voiceovers for awards, production and things as such, movies, film, direction, Rhapsody, same thing. Even looking at Heather B, for her time, and now she's on Sway in the Morning. So I just wonder because those spaces maybe don't look the way they did then. They're having to reinvent themselves.
Yeah, um, that happens. Like with any mainstream artist, really. There's very little room to be a Drake or a Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying, or a Nicki Minaj or a Cardi B. That's a very coveted and very you know small space to get in. So most people, if they don't tour constantly, they're having to do things. Talib Kweli, one of my favorite MCs, is a podcaster now. Joe Budden is a podcaster now. A lot of people are having to find other avenues to continue to connect with audiences and express themselves aside from when they get to tour and do their shows and things. So yeah, it's a limited space, and mainstream America will only allow a certain few, and they're really crafted as far as who they want, particularly when it comes to black and brown artists. So
Yeah, I think as far as like I'm really not on the rap thing now like I was when I was younger, but at the time when I was on it, I was more like Tupac, Common, Most Def, Eric B. Rakim, um,
mhm.
Eric Sermon. It was a different vibe. The message I like the stories. I like storytelling. I like artists that made me think. And one of the things I liked about Common was he was always providing information. It was because of him I hadn't even heard of Asada Shakur to the point where I
Mhm.
got her autobiography and then reading her story. I was like, wow. But we don't. A lot of people have not heard of her. And so I don't know, the music now, I'm just not a fan of it just because of the content, what is being pushed. But I definitely could see your point. Going further into this conversation, you were mentioning like you're in Jacksonville and you're doing festivals now. So, what has that been like being on the scene as an up and coming artist and in the promotion space? What has that journey been like for you? And then, what do you say to others that may be thinking about creating some type of platform for other artists?
um, so like I started doing shows kind of like for the same reason Kanye West started doing beats. You know, he did it to give him to put himself on, but also it was something to share with others. So I've always kind of hosted events along with being an artist. I used to host this open mic called the Cipher, which still runs to this day. I no longer host it, but um, it's been around for 15 plus years,
Oh
and
wow.
basically, like, I just feel like if I don't see myself in the available platforms, then I should create that space for myself. And so, a lot of the underground culture still has a lack of respect for the original music artists, particularly in hip hop and R&B. If you're doing original music, it's difficult to find work that is willing to pay you what you're worth and everything. So I was like, all right, instead of having to fight people for $150 or whatever they pay, what I'm saying, I'll create my own platform, and with my platform I get to share it with others. I get to curate a portion of the culture that I want to see and want to share with others and create the vibration that I'm looking to. So I kind of believe in that. So if you are an artist or whatever it is that you do that's creative, and you don't see yourself in a space or the people or the kinds of art that you want to see, I say create it yourself. It might not start off big and grand, but if you can find a venue that's willing to work with you, and you're pretty hardworking as far as marketing and promoting and willing to go hand in hand and touch the people. I know everything's online and you got to do that. You got to create the content. You got to do all the things, but create that space for yourself and share it with others, or create the space for the people you want, and see where it goes, because that's what we need. We need people that are willing to step out and you know add the things to the scene and the culture that they don't see, and offer that variety, because you never know who's looking for it.
That's good. And also, as an educator, being in the classroom, what do you say to parents? Because we see in schools where funding continually gets stripped out of the budget and they're removing, certain activities and programs. And music is one of those programs that's very important. So, can you kind of touch on the importance of music still today in educational spaces?
Yeah. First of all, just to be transparent. This is my first foray into the classroom. So this is my second quarter as a instructor. So I'm still kind of getting new and acclimated.
Mhm.
But I can tell you that I really believe art is the texture of our lives, and a lot of these kids really appreciate the space to express themselves and to be creative. Everybody doesn't get into an arts program and goes to Juilliard or different college programs to progress their art, but it's still necessary for kids to have an outlet. Every kid is not an athlete, and artistic expression is helpful for them to cope. It reconnects them with that element of play, particularly as they're getting older, and we're drilling in them and they got to go to school, go to college, get a job, and we're like slowly killing that inner child with them, right? um, Being in the arts helps free that. It gives them a space away from the mundane world and having to do homework and get a job and babysit their little brothers and sisters, and also listening to their parents. But it just gives them an outlet. It's freeing. Like for me, I was a teenager writing rhymes. I didn't have a program like that. My family wasn't the most supportive when it came to my artistic expression, but writing rhymes was my escape. Like I said earlier, it gave me a voice, so it made me feel like what I had to say was important. So it made me feel important, and I think that's important for these kids, whether they're rhyming or painting or dancing or singing, whatever it is they do. It's important to give them a place to express. I think human beings need space to express themselves and be creative.
Yeah, I
um,
wonder if there's a correlation if we were to really study the trend as far as um, more outbursts in classrooms or even physical altercations and compare that to the decline of the arts in our education settings. And I wonder because not having that available for our kids, not having, arts and things like that, and like you said, not having that outlet or that expression, it manifests in another way through attention deprivation disorders in the classroom or just bullying or just physical contact. So I really wonder about that. Like hearing you talk, it
yeah,
makes me think like, is there a correlation between seeing more fights and things like that in school and behavior issues in context when we look at the decline of the arts in schools and other educational settings?
I imagine there's a study out there for that, but I do not know one specifically to comment on. But I would imagine the same thing. Um, One thing I say, like, even with the types of music that's not my taste, right? I'd be like, I'd rather you do this than do something stupid. You know what I mean? If you're gonna make music about anything, whatever it is you're gonna make, or art about anything, I think that's a great alternative to doing something unproductive with it, something that's going to, hurt you or others, or get you put in a position that your life is ruined because, you just really needed some, connection and some expression and some release, So I imagine that there would be one, but I would be speculating because I haven't seen the study. But nah, it makes perfect sense. You know what I mean? Kids need space to get out, be free, do their thing, get that energy off, you know, because otherwise it does other things, and that's not just children, that's adults too. You know, a lot of our crime is poverty driven. And taking away programs from schools takes away things that they could do that are productive. And so they have to go find other things to do. And when you're young and restless, the next thing you do outside of doing things out of desperation is, mischief. So I think things like the arts and extracurricular activities have a purpose and they're needed in the community. Not even just scholastically, but just I think adults need it too. I think we all need that. Whatever it is that you do, whether you sew or, paint, I don't care what you do. You just, you need to really find what it is that makes you feel alive. I remember actually I read a meme recently that resonated with me, and it's asked about what can you what can we do for the world or something like that. It was like a twist on don't ask America what it can do for you, but what you can do for your country, something like that. And the answer they said was, instead of what we can do, is just what makes you feel most alive. That's what the world needs more of. And art is like at the center of that. you know Most of us are free. Even this podcast is a creative expression. You know what I mean? It's an outlet for people to have their voices heard, for the issues that no one else is discussing to discuss. um, and it helps you put that energy in a healthy space versus whatever you could do.
It's really good. And as we start to get on the other side of this conversation, before we wrap up, um, what have you noticed as far as how kids respond? I'm very big on advocating for Black men in educational spaces, and you showing up, and what does that do for the kids that you touch every day?
Well, like I said, I'm still kind of new, so feedback is just, really coming in for me. But what I do know is that a lot of them uh, have been expressing themselves at home. They, I had a parent comment to me last week that their son has been focused in writing lyrics at the house, and that made me feel really good. A lot of them, were a little timid about opening up and expressing themselves, and I get them to kind of give me feedback and talk. A lot of the curriculum touches on mental health topics,
Mhm.
like how to be emotionally resilient was one thing that we discussed, and empathy. This week is about risk. There's a poem by a nice Nin that paraphrases, basically saying that it's more painful to remain a bud than it is to blossom, in so many words. And basically, it just means you stay in your comfort zone and the things that you only know and are familiar with, you're going to cause yourself more harm in the end because you refuse to grow and expand, making whatever you need to engage more challenging. And it's better to deal with the discomfort of something new up front and get used to it and get better at it, because it's going to progress you then to, stay. So I try to, impart some of that wisdom to the kids, and, you know, just little coping skills. Like, I've been to therapy and everything, so I sneak that stuff into, and, just, I don't know what they go through. A lot of them go through a lot of different things because we also cater to like foster kids and kids that are in the juvenile system. You know what I mean? So they go through a lot of turmoil and trouble at home, and just trying to give them some peace and some space to, be free and kind of grow and spread their wings in a healthy way. So it seems to be going good so far. I'm really enjoying connecting with these kids for real.
That's good, and you never know how that will impact them later. You may have the next, I don't know, J. Cole or K. Dot or
That
Pharrell
would
in
be
your
fire.
class.
That would be
So
fire.
that's really good. So before we wrap everything up, I always like to ask to my guests to leave like a nugget or gem, just something that the listeners and viewers can kind of take with them until the next conversation, and then also where people can contact you on social media.
Sure thing. Practice makes perfect, right? So make sure that you are developing healthy, useful practices that will help you build up who you are and what you need to do. And make sure you practice empathy with not only others, but with yourself. You're not going to have everything together, and everything won't be perfect, but if you put a consistent effort in and you speak to yourself with compassion, you'll be more compassionate with others, and you'll be more likely to follow through on things, because nobody likes to push through being beaten up. So don't beat yourself up, just keep pushing and give yourself grace.
That's really good. It's been really good sitting here and talking with you, I give, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down to speak with me and my viewers and listeners. And those that if you missed the live, no worries. The replay will be available on my YouTube channel. You be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick and on YouTube at Camille Essick Official. And also follow I Give. He's on Instagram as well out here in these internet streets. He's on I Give the number 4 life, and you can also find him on Facebook as well. So with that being said, we are just one more episode away before we wrap up this A side of the Speaker Podcast for this season. Greg, hold on just a moment. We're gonna wrap things up. And everybody, I'll see you next week, next Thursday, same time, same channel, the Speaker Podcast, the podcast where innovators and creators connect. You all be blessed, be safe, have a great, safe weekend out there. Bye.
Peace.